and throw.
Now it's time for Spot on Sports. Here's your host, Mike Trezza.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spot on Sports, New York's newest and best sports podcast. My name is Mike Trezza. Let me say hello to my co-host, the man we call the coach, Mike Gadone.
Always a pleasure to be here, Trez, and it seems like each time we sit down, there's just more and more sports to talk about and big stories. I'm psyched to be here.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, Mike. It's easy coming off that Super Bowl that really, let's be honest, it turned into a bit of a snooze fest for us or anybody else on another show to say, hey, you know what? That was a stink fest. Let's turn the page. Let's not dig into it. But honestly, I feel there is a lot to dig into there. So let's start with your reaction to KC, or I should say Tampa 31, KC 9. What were your big takeaways, and where did it go wrong for KC in that game?
Well, I think, after they won the coin flip, it was all downhill from there. It just was unbelievable because to watch a defending Super Bowl champion team, well coached, with everything on the line, just implode in terms of their attitude and things on the sidelines and the trash talk and the penalties. I mean, the penalties, again, that crew notoriously, believe it, I had heard this stat that crew had called the most penalties in any games this year. So they were, they had to be ready for it. But it's part of the game, and they happened at some big times. But then, drops later on, guys getting hit right in the face. I mean, all these things that you would never expect from a team of that level. Now, you have to give Tampa Bay a lot of credit. Defense was amazing. Game plan, tremendous. But, man, I just coming away from that game, my biggest takeaway was just the implosion of the Kansas City Chiefs.
But how did we get from where we were last week, which is Mike Gadone, Mike Trezza, everybody else saying, hey, this KC team, so well coached. I mean, you raving about, me raving about, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, the play design, it's so innovative, Patrick Mahomes, how in sync he is with Travis Kelce, with Tyreek Hill. How did we get from there to that absolute disaster that we saw from the Kansas City Chiefs all day and all night on Super Bowl Sunday?
Well, Patrick Mahomes doesn't need a ton of time to throw the ball to be effective, but he needs a little bit. And you could see just from the movement on the offensive line, the injuries that Kansas City dealt with, making some changes. We thought it would be a subtle change, not even close. I mean, this was a major, major change. And then Tampa comes in, exploits that, and poor Mahomes. Here's a crazy stat, and you might have seen this. They did an analysis of how much he ran out of pressure during the game. 500 yards, 497. They tracked him at running to get out of trouble.
That's crazy.
I mean, he everything was backwards spin, and that's part of his game, but he was a little hobbled and just never had any time. They look shell-shocked.
But before you tell me, folks, that offensive linemen are big, fat, unathletic guys who all they can do is get in somebody's way and they're replaceable. Here's what I want to tell you, okay? Eric Fisher, if I'm him, not today, not tomorrow, but next Monday, I'm in the office of the owner saying, hey, buddy, you can talk all you want about Patrick Mahomes and Kelce and Hill and those guys. You saw what your offense looks like without me, and you saw how much time Patrick Mahomes had in that game to set up and throw the ball. Like you said, Mike, he was running for his life from the opening whistle.
But some of the most amazing throws I've ever seen while he's running for his life. I mean, he was taken down. He's throwing literally from his knees. At one time, he sidearms the ball. I mean, I was watching the game with a couple of people. Of course, when you're watching the Super Bowl, generally you're not watching it with the most knowledgeable sports fans or whatever else, but they were blown away just by the sheer athleticism of this guy. But, yeah, you're not going to beat anybody consistently doing that, especially when you're hobbled. And kudos to Tampa Bay for their game plan. I mean, Todd Bowles, my goodness. I'm not a defensive football person by any means, but the way that they explained it and dropping the safeties back and just kind of daring them to run the ball and giving them so much room, it was perfection.
And by the way, I'm not trying to tweak Jet fans, but if you're a Jet fan, watching your old head coach, Todd Bowles, team up with Brady, the guy who was sticking it to you basically for 2 decades to win a Super Bowl on their home field, that had to be a little bit torturous, let's be honest.
Oh, absolutely. And when you think of the Jets now in terms of them drafting, you see how important these offensive linemen are. It's not a sexy pick early, in the draft, but man, these guys are worth their weight in gold.
Very, very true. So, I think, and listen, I mean, credit, there's a lot of credit to go around. Tom Brady, we can talk about him. Everybody's bored of talking about him, and I am too, I'll be honest with you. Is he the greatest of all time? Yes, he's the greatest of all time. There's no question about it. It's not even debate anymore, folks. Let's be very honest about it. Tom Brady is the greatest ever to play quarterback, maybe that ever will. My question to you, bigger picture, before we even dig into the X's and O's of this game, is Tom Brady the greatest ever to play any team sport in the pantheon of American team sports? Hockey, basketball, baseball, football. Where do you stack him up, Mike?
He's certainly in the discussion. I mean, I think in terms of being the greatest of all time as a quarterback, football player, of course. But you know what? One of the smartest of all time, just in his game management. I was always blown away by Peyton Manning and his command of the game and whatever else. But there were times I really felt that Peyton got a little, I don't know. I don't want to use
outsmarted himself.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
I think so. Absolutely. Yeah, he was kind of he thought he was the smartest guy in the room, and he really did outsmart himself.
Almost a little too cerebral.
Yes, exactly. Brady just seems to know exactly when to turn it on, turn it off. I was very much amazed, though, by him going back and forth with Tyron there.
I was going to get into that. That's on my sheet.
Exactly. I mean, that you've never seen that, but he even later on he apologized. But when you are in the greatest of all time, if you're doing a Mount Rushmore of sports greats in whatever sport it is in the United States and the world, he's definitely on there. And boy, just when you think he's had it or he might be declining or whatever else, he comes right back. That I love the argument now. Was it Belichick or was it Brady?
Well, right now, Brady can say it's him. It's not Belichick. Belichick, you saw what happened to him this year without Brady. You saw what happened to Brady this year without Belichick. So right now, who's got it over who?
Oh, my goodness.
So let's dig into this game, Mike. So KC wins the coin toss. They decide to defer, as many teams have done lately.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay gets the ball. They go 3-0. All right? KC gets the ball. They get 1 first down, and they end up punting the ball. All right? So now it looks to you, a fan, like sort of a heavyweight fight where round 1, we're feeling each other out, right? You're sitting at home. You're waiting for these big guys to start throwing haymakers, and they're kind of feeling each other out, seeing where the openings lie.
Sure.
All right? So Tampa gets the ball again. They get 1 first down. They end up punting the ball. And KC gets the ball again. They end up scoring a field goal. They're up 3-0. You're saying to yourself, all right, well, I know the offense is going to pick up in this game. All right. Tampa Bay gets the ball. They end up, nice drive. They end up completing to Gronk, who we talked about last week. Gronkowski, very much, most of the season has been used as a decoy. They very rarely have gone to him in favor of Cameron Brate.
It's almost like Brady and Gronk got together and said, you know what? Let's just keep it low key until we get to the big game.
This is your time, exactly.
Oh my God. He had six receptions, 67 yards, 2 TDs. Of course, the touchdowns are big, but just at the biggest times, he's catching passes. I went back, did a little research. His other biggest game this year, over 100 yards receiving against Kansas City. So it seemed to be kind of his time to shine against the Chiefs. But yeah, he was literally nowhere to be found throughout the year in terms of making that huge impact. And he was the Gronk of old in this game, doing everything that Gronk does.
And you were right. You had a feeling going into this game that he's been lying in the weeds, just waiting for the right opportunity for Brady and for Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich to dust him off, get him open, and get not one TD, but 2 TDs. All right, so next drive, they go back to Gronk for the TD again. They're up 14-3. And about this time, you and I texted each other, and I said, Mike, Casey's offense looks really bad. And you said, so out of sync.
Yes.
And Patrick Mahomes at that point in time, I think they made a reference in the first half to 2 out of 10 2 for 11, somewhere in there. Now, when did you ever see Patrick Mahomes going 2 for 10, 2 for 11 in the first half of a football game?
Can't remember it. And what kind of shocked me about their adjustments was, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but coming out of halftime, what's the first thing that Kansas City does? Runs the ball a couple of times, gets a big gain. And I'm thinking to myself, what have they been waiting for? Did they have to? I mean, these guys are the greatest coaches in the world. Did they have to go in and have a skull session at halftime to say we better run the ball?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they're getting no relief early in the game, first half. So Mahomes, when he's struggling, he's got nobody to throw to, or he's under pressure constantly, can't catch his breath. So once they come out of halftime, start running the ball a little bit, I felt better. But it was almost like it was, like you said, almost too late.
Yeah.
I mean, 21-6, tough.
All right, so don't get ahead of me.
I'm sorry.
We're going to get there.
I'm getting jazzed up about those adjustments. That's the coach in me.
So 14-3, all right? Casey gets the ball. They put together a field goal drive. So now it's 14-6, all right? So I'm watching the game with my wife. Here's what my wife, Tisha, knows about football. She knows Tom Brady's handsome. That's it. That's what she knows. So I said, listen, I don't have to go to work tomorrow. You do. I'm going to go out. I had already shoveled. I'm going to sprinkle some of the rock salt down on the steps. So I go out to do that at 14-6, and I said to her, listen, Casey has played as badly as you can play, and they're down. Again, you and I talk about this. We're conditioned now in terms of fans to be 1-score game, 2-score game, 3-score game. I said it's 14-6. They're down 1 score.
Exactly.
So you know what? Patrick Mahomes is a guy who can come back at any moment. I said this is going to be a little bit closer than it's looked so far. So I go outside. I come back in. And Tampa's driving the ball, and they're down to Kansas City's 35-yard line. And here's where Andy Reid, to me, messed up. He calls a timeout, right? He's playing to the score, Mike. Mm-hmm. He's playing to the 14-6 score, and what is he hoping for? He's hoping to get the ball back for Patrick one more time. So he ends up helping out Bruce Arians and his crew by calling the timeout right there. And again, I don't want to sound like we're having the same conversation you and I had after the Tampa Bay Green Bay game, but the sequence before the half was so huge. 14-6. Now you go to 21-6. And I put that on Andy Reid. He should not have called that timeout. Let Bruce Arians call his timeout right there. Lay out and say, hey, I'm going to make you use your timeouts on offense. I'm not going to use them on defense.
Absolutely. And when your offense is struggling, it's not as if they were hitting their stride and they were going to make this great move down the field and whatever else. I can't agree with you more on that. Here's, to me, where the brilliance of Tom Brady comes in. By putting that ball up deep to Mike Evans there and just hoping something happens to get a penalty, it happens. It's almost as soon as that ball went up, I had exactly deja vu to what we were talking about, to what we had seen in the Green Bay game. And I said, something bad's going to happen here and for Kansas City, and boom, penalty. Evans gets tackled by his feet. The backs are looking incredulous. Even again, my wife and my daughter, who pretty much, I think, know the same as you're saying with your wife about Tom Brady. Even they were going, of course that's a penalty. And then just a back-breaking.
Now, you're talking about the one on Evans.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a penalty. Did you?
I did.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
I did.
Here's my thing, though, Mike. Let me stop you one sec. Because we tell defensive backs, you got to look back for the ball. So here's this kid. And I'm sorry, I don't remember which kid on KC's defense tried to cover Evans on that play. But Mike Evans, tough cover, big guy, top receiver. And we tell the defensive backs, you got to look back for the ball. So here's this guy. He looks back for the ball. He gets his feet tangled up with Evans. And then as he's going down, inadvertently, not to take down Evans, but to really more to break his own fall, he pushes Evans in the back. Whoosh, pass interference.
I don't know. I felt the other way. I thought that as he was falling, he knew he was toast, and he just said, I got to reach out and do anything to take him down. I felt that way live. I could see what you're saying on the replay, but I still feel that he was really, really like, I got to do something here to make sure that this is not a quick 6, and maybe I'll get called, maybe I won't. Again, this is split-second things with these guys, but I don't know. I thought it was a no-brainer on that call.
And here's where our buddy Matthew comes into play, right? On that same series, he gets a pass interference play penalty on him in the end zone, right?
Yep.
First and goal at the 1. They go to Antonio Brown for the touchdown. Boom, 21-6. Big difference moving into the second half. Then we have the little dust up between him and Brady. And you referenced it earlier. Brady, instead of backing off like most quarterbacks would do, right? You want to get into it with Tyrann Mathieu? I don't, quite honestly. If I'm a quarterback right there, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I said what I had to say. Here, Mr. 350, get over here and take on this guy while I go,
Absolutely.
I run back to the sideline. And Brady not only wants to go face-to-face with this guy, he chases down Mathieu right before the half so he can tell Mathieu whatever it was he said to him. I don't know. I don't care. But he said something to him, obviously, along these lines. Hey, son, guess what? You might be good. And Matthew's a good player, Mike.
Oh, absolutely.
He talks a lot of junk, but he backs it up. But, I imagine Tom said something along the lines of, hey, son, you might be a good player, but you're not Tom Brady, and I am. And you're going to give me the respect I deserve.
Absolutely. And there was something with the 2 fingers that Mathieu was putting up. So, again, to try to speculate exactly what it was, but I think you're onto something there. What caught my eye is as the half is ending, Mathieu goes to the bench. They're trying to calm him down. Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator, comes over. And he's talking to him. You can see Matthew's upset. He's calming him down a little bit, but still, it's a respectful exchange. Then, right as halftime's starting, Matthew gets up, and someone, I'm not sure who it was, whether it was a coach or somebody else, said something to him, and he basically just pushed him out of the way and gave him a look like, who are you talking to me? And ran in. And I said, wow, his head is gone.
Yeah. And again, we can come back to your earlier point about the coaching staff. Now, it sounds weird to take this kind of detour and this kind of departure, but we have to put into the equation the incident during the week with Andy Reid's son with the car accident, all right? So here are Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich, and also Todd Bowles coming up with this great game plan for Tampa Bay. And Andy Reid and his staff are distracted by this incident. How much do you think, Mike, that thing played into what was obviously, again, I don't want to be overly harsh here. The Tampa Bay coaching staff in that game made Andy Reid and his staff look like a clown car. Look, can we be honest?
Which is absolutely shocking to me, but it bears talking about because there's got to be some reason why they were so out of sync. I mean, it was even with that mask on and whatever else, you could tell just there was something missing there on that sidelines. It makes a lot of sense. There is a razor-thin margin for error in these games, in the preparation, in the adjustments. And it had to be weighing on Andy Reid's mind in some way, shape, or form. Guy's a human being. His son is potentially in a lot of trouble here. And just, thinking about an accident that took place and just, we're talking about life and death in those situations. So had to take away. Who knows? I mean, I can tell you, I've coached a lot of games, and I'm not a professional coach, but if I was and something happened within my family, and that person was on my staff or part of the game or whatever, my mind's got to drift from time to time, and it's got to shake me up. So, was it kind of a comedy of errors here or the perfect storm maybe for these things to happen? Absolutely. To watch one Super Bowl winning coach get completely outmatched by a guy who's been around and is a great coach but doesn't have the chip just yet.
Yeah, was
stunning.
That was tough to take, and all of this stuff plays into it. We talked about KC's offense out of sync. We talked about KC's defense being really undisciplined, and even their special teams. You got this punter out there with the hair down to his rear end. I mean, he's shanking balls left and right. He finally gets a good one off. A 56-yard punt, they get it called back for a holding penalty, and he shanks the next one off the side of his foot. I'm like, dude, get out of here. Go get a haircut. I don't care what you do. I don't want to see you again.
And it's such an easy target to say this, but you have one job. Punt the football.
Oh, the guy was bad. And the whole KC team was bad. But, again, 21-6, 2-score game. So now we'll fast forward to the second half, all right? And this, to me, told the whole tale, Mike. KC comes out. They get the ball. They're driving the ball down, all right? like you said, they're having a couple nice runs. They committed to the run. Now you're only 2 scores down. You go to Kelsey, your big tight end, your big weapon, on 3rd down, and you incomplete. You end up settling for a field goal right there. Now it's 21-9. You still in the game? Yeah, you're still in the game. You give it back to Tampa. Tampa puts together a drive. They go to Gronk on 3rd down, and guess what? Complete.
Right. And that's another example right there, of the all-timer in terms of stepping up in these big games. Gronk, Travis Kelce is by far the top tight end in football. At the
right
moment.
now, much better than Gronk.
But when there's an incomplete to him and the momentum swings just a little bit, and then like you're saying, go back to Gronk 3rd down. That's a backbreaker. I mean, anybody who watches, of course, you have Kansas City still has a puncher's chance in the game, but in reality, it's over.
And they referenced it. They said at this point, Tom Brady has now completed between the 2nd quarter and 3rd quarter 9 passes in a row. He goes into the end zone incomplete. He goes on the sideline incomplete. And then they have that crazy play where the center snaps the ball over his head. Tom Brady, again, smart, veteran. He doesn't try to pick up the ball and run with it. He's not going to do that.
Doesn't need to.
He's too smart for that. He falls on the ball, and this is when you knew it was just not going to be KC's night. Even with those 2 incompletions and that crazy bad snap, they still get a 51-yard field goal right there.
Huge.
And at this point, it is, let's see, 21-9. Was it 24-9?
24-9.
No, I'm sorry. At this point, it's 31-9.
Right.
Because they had the
already,
touchdown
yes,
with Fournette on the prior. So now it's 31-9, and guess what?
Yeah. Come on. No matter how much Tony Romo wanted to say, we're doing the math, and we're 3 scores or we're 2 scores or whatever. Yeah, I mean,
you're done.
Absolutely. And I never would think in my life watching football, especially young Patrick Mahomes, who was destined at some point to be one of the greats all time, that he had no weapons. He had nothing.
He had no weapons and he had no time. We talked about the offensive line without Fisher. And again, does one guy make that big a difference? Well, seemingly it did. We talked about Mahomes not being healthy in that game. It didn't really become that obvious until the second half when he started running around. We talked about really the only thing that was left from an entertainment standpoint was, as you mentioned earlier, some of the crazy plays that Mahomes was making, trying desperately. That one play where they even mentioned it. They said, he's horizontal to the ground when he's throwing that ball. He hits the receiver anyway, right in the face mask, and the guy doesn't catch the ball.
And talk about being the GOAT in the wrong way. I mean, unbelievable play. Yeah, you can at least get your hands on the ball, catch it. Again, the punter punts, the receivers catch the ball. People all over him. I get it. There was pressure, the D-backs, but you got to make that catch. I mean, you have to.
Have to. And a couple things bothered me coming away from that game, Mike. I made reference to the officiating in the first half. All right, 8 penalties on the Chiefs. Now, some of them are black and white. You're undisciplined. Chris Jones, you smack that guy in the face after the play, you're going to get that flag, and I have no sympathy.
No.
A couple of those I thought were a little ticky-tack, including the one on Matthew that set off the exchange between him and Brady. I thought the one with the play with Evans was a little, that could have gone either way. But the thing that bothered me was there was nothing coming back the other way. No. And the play that made me think this was this. If you notice, there was a play on the Chiefs' first drive of the second half. Mahomes was in the middle of getting sacked, and here comes Sue.
Oh.
Sue has been a dirty player all his life, Mike. I mean, the only guy more dirty than Sue was Burfict, who got thrown out of the league for being dirty.
Right.
And as Mahomes is going down, Sue gives him a whack across the face.
Clearly targets his head. This is a guy who had neck injuries, 3 weeks ago.
Where's the flag on that play, Mike?
That's amen. There's no defense, and it's not like somebody could have missed it or whatever. I mean, it was plain as day right there, and I can't tell you.
And you got Mahomes, who's a nice kid. He's not a whiner. He's not a showboat. He's standing there with the ref with his arms out like this saying, hey, dude, you called 8 penalties on us in the first half. Where's my flag?
Yeah, unnecessary roughness. You don't even have to say targeting, whatever. I mean, give him something.
You got to. You got to. So that was one of the things. So I thought that one of the things that bothered me coming away from that game, I thought KC got a bad whistle, especially in the first half. And the other thing that bothered me, Mike, and I don't know how you get around this or if we want to even jump into this, it was the issue of Tampa Bay being able to play that game at home. If you're the NFL, you're Roger Goodell, how do you avoid that? Now, you could say to me, hey, Mike, this only happened once in 55 years. Get over it. But how do I avoid that ever happening again?
That's a great question. I mean, all the your better stadiums, especially look at next year's SoFi Stadium in California. That's hosting the Super Bowl. You got the San Diego Chargers and the LA Rams that play there. There's very few neutral site stadiums that are able to host these games or that are even on the horizon anymore. It used to be, you had multi-use stadiums or even down in Florida or back at the Rose Bowl in California. I mean, a great site, but you're never going to have a Super Bowl there anymore because no luxury boxes.
See, that's the problem. You have to get a venue that can accommodate not just the amount of fans you want to have in, but nowadays the security is a big issue. The luxury boxes are a big issue. So I think they should have a rotation of 10 to 12 non-NFL stadium sites where they can have this. And this way we can't, because
the problem is, though, are there that many?
I don't know. But see, here's the thing, Mike. From a perception standpoint, you're Roger Goodell. You can get up there and play Mr. Smiley Face at the end. But you know what? You can't be happy coming off that game knowing that a guy like me and you are getting on the air today, and we're talking about, hey, is this what the NFL wants? Was there some sort of bias unwittingly on a part of that officiating staff who you mentioned it earlier, has a tendency to throw a lot of flags?
A lot of flags.
Was there a tendency, just because Tampa Bay was home, to sort of flag the Chiefs unnecessarily, or
there's some type of home field advantage that has never been had before. Bears thinking about.
Yeah. So that's something to think about. The other thing to think about coming off that game is a little bit of the bloom off Patrick Mahomes' rose, or is he still the guy that you see as the face of the NFL?
I still think he's the face and or at least for the face of the future. Was it a bad game? Yeah, in some ways, but in terms of his ability to get out of trouble when he could and make throws and at least put his team in position to score when guys were dropping balls and whatever else, and just his toughness. I don't think so. I think to the casual fan, maybe you go, this Mahomes guy heard all these great things. Yeah, he's not so good. I don't know. If you really know football, you're watching, he's coming back strong. Interesting note, though, having surgery for turf toe is going to be a somewhat extensive rehab to come back, but he's slated to be back, opening day next year. But that's a tough injury.
All right, so quickly before we go to break, because we have about a minute left, Mike, we mentioned the quarterback carousel. We talked about Watson a lot. We've talked about other guys. The one guy we haven't really mentioned, who obviously is headed to a new destination, is Carson Wentz. Now, I'm going to make you Joe Douglas for a sec, the Jets GM. Do you have any interest in bringing in Carson Wentz and saying goodbye to Sam Darnold in this offseason?
I don't see that. I'm I was a big fan of Carson Wentz in the past. I mean, the guy was a Super Bowl MVP type caliber player. I mean, obviously he got hurt that year, but he was on the way when Philly won the Super Bowl to really being the MVP. With him, he didn't have time. His confidence went way down. I don't know if I want to bring him in. The latest I've heard on him is that there is a big rumor going to the Chicago Bears with Foles coming back.
Wow!
I heard that was
trading places. Eddie Murphy
exactly.
and Nick Nolte.
That was a hot one, because then you know what, you bring back Foles, and he can kind of be either the stopgap or the mentor for a year or whatever else. Kind of, takes care of two birds with one stone. That could be an interesting one.
So much more to get to, folks. We're going to step away. We're going to take a short break. We've got so much more to get to. We're going to get to Derrick Rose. We're going to get to baseball and hockey. We'll be back right after this on Spot on Sports in just 30 seconds.
Now back to Spot On Sports with your host, Mike Trezza.
Welcome back, everyone, to Spot On Sports. Mike Trezza, Mike Gadone. And you know, Mike, the other story that really started bubbling up at the end of last weekend, but it really took till the last day or so to become finalized, was the Knicks trade for Derrick Rose. Now, you and I started talking back and forth, or texting back and forth when this started coming onto the radar screen, and I was like, Mike, you know, what do you think about the potential of this trade? And now that it's actually official, let me ask you again, what do you think about this trade?
Can you see the smoke coming out of my ears even with headphones on? Man, this to me was like the old Knicks again, bringing back, you know, somebody from the past. And listen, Derrick Rose, is he still a better than average player? Absolutely. Can he help you win some games in the short term? Yes, I have no doubt. But is he going to bring the Knicks, you know, so much higher at the expense of quickly on the bench? You know, you have Elfrid Payton. What are you going to do with him? I saw something the other day. People were saying, "Oh, you got to cut him." Cut him. I mean, he's had some huge games. He's going to help someone if you have a trade in place for him. Okay, fine. Dennis Smith Jr., he was never in the plans anyway.
No, but I'm glad to be rid of him. I would have given them Ntilikina, too, just to get rid of him.
I was just going to say, is Ntilikina like on a milk crate somewhere?
Yeah, he's on a witness protection I haven't seen him in a month.
I mean, I'd like to see what Phil Jackson's thinking these days, you know, Mr. First-round pick of that guy. You know, nice kid, Ntilikina, could play a little D, but couldn't shoot to save his life, but nowhere to be found. Dennis Smith, you're not giving up anything. He asked to go down to the D-League because he wasn't playing. So they sent him down there. I guess he's going to break out of Orlando now and, you know, head to Detroit. But, yeah, in terms of what you gave up, nothing. The second-round pick, they had gotten through a trade anyway. But it's a head-scratcher to me when you have a young, hungry, hardworking team. I know Thibodeau, you know, Coach Thibodeau loves Derrick Rose. They have a history going back. But, yeah, I am waiting and I am hoping that there is something within this next week that's going to say, all right, now I get it.
Yeah. So, you know, the thing is, to me, it's not necessarily the danger of bringing in Derrick Rose, because he's not going to do anything to hurt you. If anything, he's going to help you on the scoring side, right? And as you said, Thibodeau's coached him in two different locations, not just Chicago, but Minnesota as well. So obviously the relationship is there. My problem with bringing him in, is not even a chemistry issue. Rose, I think, will be a positive force on the younger players, all right? But the thing is that you and I last week and even the week before, we started raving about this young man, Emmanuel Quickley, right? You've been impressed by Quickley. I have. I think most Knicks fans or most basketball fans have been. And so now you're bringing in Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose has got to play. So where do you find the minutes for Derrick Rose without stapling Emmanuel Quickley to the bench?
I don't know. Do you play them together?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, are we going to set up a new three-guard offense where when you take let's just say, for example, Julius Randle off the floor, do you go with three guards? Is that crazy for me to even think that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it actually can be a matchup problem for some teams when you go small like that. But, you know, when are you going to find the time to kind of work on that, get that going? I mean, I know practice is somewhat overrated in the NBA, but you
practice?
I was waiting for that one. I set that one up for you. But seriously, I mean, I guess you can work on it on the fly somewhat, but you know, one thing I'll tell you really quick. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to go to an NBA-sponsored scouting combine, and spoke to an advanced scout from one of the teams. He basically told me that each NBA team, and this is really true, this is no joke, runs 3 sets. Now I think now they run 2. I think everything is a high pick and roll, whatever else. So really, you know, for someone to come in and have to pick up an offense, that doesn't happen anymore. But you need a little work with your personnel if you want to work on that stuff. Yeah, why are you going to take your number one budding rookie and bring in someone who's going to play minutes ahead of him?
Yeah, but see, here's the thing, Mike. And from a chemistry standpoint, you know, all right, we're worried about taking minutes away from Quickley, but are you worried at all about taking shots away from a guy like Julius Randle, who, again, we referenced this last week, at 26, he's essentially the old man on this team, or at least was until Derrick Rose got here.
I'm kind of hoping that Rose is smart enough to know that at this point in his career that he's on the last year of his deal. He wants to stay in the league. He wants to be, he still wants to make the cash. That he is smart enough to know as he's coming to this situation, make Randall look good. Work with the younger guys. Be a guy that can be, 14, 15 point a game, but he's not going to come on there and make guys, PO'd at him for taking the ball out of their hands.
Yeah, Derrick Rose was averaging 19 a game, but that was in Detroit. That was on the worst team in the league. So you're not going to average 19 here. I'm wondering if you're going to take time away from quickly. That's my main concern. You mentioned Peyton. Peyton's played well this year.
Played very well.
I've not been a big Peyton fan until this year, averaging about 12 a game. But again, running the team effectively, playing good defense, and has given the Knicks a positive run.
Yeah, not like the position you needed to upgrade for.
Exactly.
I mean, if I wanted to bring in a shooter, if I wanted to try to get JJ Redick or somebody to come in, and put some threes up there or whatever else and say, okay, well, this makes a little sense, and maybe I get rid of somebody. But yeah, Derrick Rose, man, I don't know. And listen, I'm gonna go back to one thing real quickly on him. I have a long memory with guys with the New York Knicks. He played one full season with the Knicks.
Yes.
And my biggest memory of him is him flaking out and missing a game and going missing in action.
Pulling a Kyrie.
I'm telling you. And I know he's older now, whatever else, but that sticks with me. And
listen, at 31 years of age, if you're still doing that nonsense, listen, you don't belong on any team. I'm sorry to say.
Exactly.
I don't think Derrick Rose is going to do that. That's not what I'm afraid of. What I am concerned with is, so right now, Mike, the Knicks are sitting just outside the playoffs. They're sitting at number 9, right? And they've had a good stretch recently. So you could say if they didn't make the Rose deal, where can you move up to? Could you move up to number 8? Could you move up to number 7? Could you move up to number 6? Beyond that is a little bit of a stretch to see, right? So if you can say just with Thibodeau's coaching and the guys they already have, could you move up to a 7 or 6? Yes. What can you do with Rose? Does he take you from a potential 6 or 7 to now being a 4, for example?
All right, so we're talking about, here's the top 4. 76ers, Bucks, Nets, Celtics.
Are you getting past any of those teams with Derrick?
No chance.
Okay. So then what's the point?
I'm right there with you, but I don't know what the point is. I mean, you got the Pacers in 5th, 12-12, the Hornets, who are actually starting to play, good Lord, the ball situation, never liked either of those guys, but you got to give LaMelo Ball a lot of credit. He's playing like the rookie of the year. Hawks are a good young team. Raptors are starting to find their stride a little bit. So even to get up to the 6th spot, even 7, 8, the Raptors, Hawks, Hornets, these are no joke teams. So yeah, to get up to 4th or even sneak into 5th, it's not going to happen.
The one thing that is eminently more possible, and I mentioned it last week, I said, hey, Mike, am I crazy to start fantasizing about this, is a Knicks-Nets matchup. Now, again, I realize I'm selling this hard. I'm doing the Tony Romo here. But is it crazy now with Rose to think, hey, the Nets or the Knicks will be most probably in that 6th spot, and the Nets, unless they move up significantly and straighten out whatever chemistry problems they have, get past the, as you like to say, load management of Kevin Durant, not to mention the COVID protocols with Kevin Durant.
Can he stay away from people who are sick, please?
I mean, they might be locked into that number 3 seed. So a 3-6 Knicks-Nets matchup, I really think, Mike, is going to, this summer, capture the imagination of this area.
It completely likely. I'm looking at this too. The Nets in the last 10, 5-5.
Right.
Are they going to be better than that? Yeah, they're going to be better.
They're going to be better.
But it doesn't seem like they're going to make this an incredible commitment to defense that's going to get them ahead of the Bucks or the Sixers.
No, they're not going to pass either of those.
And I don't see them falling, below the Celtics or the Pacers. Yeah, the Knicks get into 6. That could be a very intriguing, at least for the city of New York. Finally, we get something to talk about.
Because we look at it this way. We're going to save hockey for a few minutes, but we're not going to get an Islanders-Ranger matchup this postseason, right? We're not going to get a Yankee-Met World Series this year, I don't think. I mean, it's possible, but another conversation for another day.
That'd be something.
But, I mean, so this is something that we can keep an eye on. But Knicks, very generally speaking, playing well lately. Nets, as we mentioned, they've had chemistry problems. They've had defensive problems. You and I talked about who they could bring in that could solidify the paint for them defensively and solidify the rebounding. You mentioned Andre Drummond. Is he still on anybody's radar screen? Does he help?
I guess. The one player they need, and we said this, Jared Allen.
Exactly.
And there was a report out of Cleveland this week that they're looking to possibly even deal him.
Hey, you know what?
Bring him back.
I love Jared Allen.
I don't know what you'd have to give up, but man, he would right there. You put him on this team, and then I'm really, really confident. Eastern Conference.
You have to give up quality to get quality. Right. I know it's a cliche. They had to give up Karis LeVert.
I know it's never going to happen, but a man can dream.
Yeah, they had to give up LeVert. They had to give up Jared Allen. But honestly, I was going to say exactly the same thing. What the Nets need in the middle, they need Jared Allen. They need a guy that can shot block. They need a guy that can rebound. They need a guy that can that's not going to back down from the Joel Embiids of the world. And, Joel Embiid looks like he can kick the crap out of Jared Allen. But you know what? Last time they played, when Allen was on the Nets, he didn't back down from him.
Right, and you have those veteran guys around you who are going to pump you up, who are going to make you feel even better about yourself. And it's not about him getting his stats or his numbers. He's going to be on a championship level team, and he's going to be a very, very important cog.
And before we move on to baseball, Mike, let's quickly mention Rangers were kind of getting on a good streak. They were getting their stuff together. Islanders have been putting together a little run, including a win last night over the Rangers. Scoreless in the middle of the third quarter until your man's Casey Cizikas finally puts the biscuit in the basket, puts the Islanders up 1-0. Matt Martin, just a couple minutes later, a little over 2 minutes later, scores from Clutterbuck and also from Barzal. What is Barzal doing on the ice with those guys? But, again, I'll take it any way I can get it. 2-0 victory over the Rangers last night.
That's the type of game the Islanders must win, have to win, will win, the grind-out type games. They can't get in shootouts with anybody. Again, when you're seeing the Islanders, 5-4, 4-3, they are not playing Islander hockey. They're not playing Barry Trotz hockey. Grinding it out 2-1. Varlamov, again, shutout. I mean, when the game is being played in front of him the way it needs to be, he's almost unbeatable.
Yeah, 3 shutouts this year, 2 of them against the Rangers. These two teams are going to see each other.
Play him every game against the Rangers.
Oh, absolutely. These two teams are going to see each other 8 times in a 56-game schedule, so they're going to become good friends.
And there's he's probably in their head a little bit. Why not?
Absolutely. So let's turn our attention right now to the to baseball, Mike. This time of the year, it's the middle of February. Super Bowl is over. There's a foot of snow sitting on the ground, and people like you and me start fantasizing about springtime coming and about
pitchers and catchers.
Pitchers and catchers is a magical phrase for guys like you and me. All right, so just a couple weeks away, and now today baseball comes down the pike, adhering to some rules they put in place last year, maybe moving away from 1 or 2 others. 7-inning doubleheaders are back next year, Mike Gadone. What do you think of that?
I'm okay with that.
You are?
I am. That one I'm okay with. Well,
I'm surprised.
That one I'm okay with. When you are putting that in conjunction with a runner on second to start extra innings, listen, I would take that one over the runner. So if I'm picking and choosing here, but now of course both those rules are in, and we haven't heard officially yet about DH. The 7-inning doubleheaders, you know what? When
that bothers me, Mike. I got to tell you, that feels like I should be out on a softball field on a Sunday morning with a keg of beer sitting on the field.
Well, what did your buddy Bob Herzog say the other day?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? All right, I'll tell you exactly what he said. He said basically, and I'm stealing his thunder. He said that he could live with the 7-inning doubleheaders.
Did he say that?
He did say that.
I'm surprised.
Rewind the tape. Go to the videotape. Warner Wolf, bring him in. No, he said that at least he could kind of understand that and kind of live with it. Although, last year when that came in, we're talking in a 60-game season, you needed that. A spread out season. Do you really need these right now? I don't know. You can make an argument that at least it's, cutting down game times or travel or bringing, teams back into cities when they're on the road. So, a little bit with that. Where I really have the biggest problem is the runner on second for extra innings. That to me is like, video game baseball.
Nobody liked that. And let me tell you what I have the biggest problem with, Mike. And again, we talked about this with Bob, and this I do remember. It's the whole designated hitter thing. Can we please just settle the thing already? You want to get rid of the DH in both leagues? I don't have a problem. You want to have it in both leagues? I don't have a problem. But please, make a decision. Let's have the same baseball in every park in the country every night of the season. Now, you talk about doubleheaders, right? I mean, that's something that's going to happen for each team maybe a few times a season. You talk about extra inning games with a runner starting on second base from the 10th inning on. That's something that's going to happen a few times a season. Mike, interleague play with a different set of rules in the American National League happens every day of the season. I can't take it.
That's a great point. And you made that a couple of weeks ago as well. Absolutely. I mean, when it became every night and not traditional rivalries or whatever, all the mystique out of the two leagues left. It really did. So for me, I grew up a Met fan, National League fan, loved to watch pitchers hit. The Mets, as a matter of fact, do have a couple of guys who can rake as pitchers. But to me, make the DH. Gives extra players a chance to kind of prolong their career. Or listen, am I being selfish with the Mets? Of course. They have they have Dom Smith and Pete Alonso, who can both play first base, although, Dom Smith much better. Put him at first and let Pete DH, and just moving around that way gives you a little extra flexibility. But you're 100% right. Keep it the same.
But you know what's insane, though, Mike? Here we are. It's the middle of February. You mentioned it. Spring training starts in a week or two. And you're Sandy Alderson, right? Before you were Joe Douglas, now you're Sandy Alderson. You're taking on a lot of identities here. So
wish I was making their money.
You're trying to put together a team, and you don't know in a month and a half if we're going to have a designated hitter in your park or we're not going to have one. How are you supposed to construct your roster without that information?
Thankfully, he's got a new owner that is going to open up his pockets a little bit and maybe be able to plan for both of those. But if this was last year as a Met fan where, the dollar is tight, it's impossible.
But here's what I'm saying to you, Mike. If you're baseball, you cannot hide behind COVID. Listen, I know about COVID. We're all sick of hearing about COVID. We're sick of living under it. We're sick of it affecting and infecting every aspect of our life. All right? We can all agree on that. But you can't use COVID as a cover to just make up stupid rules as you go along. Last year, I'll give you an example of this. They didn't tell any of the teams that were in the postseason that they were going to play every night of the postseason until a month before the postseason started. It's almost like they're making it up as they go along. And listen, I don't want to whine as a Yankee fan. Tampa was the better team. We lost to Tampa. I have no problem. But when you're Brian Cashman, you're trying to construct your roster for the postseason, it would be nice to know that you're going to play playoff games every night for 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row, or whatever the situation is. All right, so we got to get this stuff straight with the DH. I don't know why they had to tie it to the whole thing about extra playoff rounds.
I don't know, but I think what you constantly hear about baseball is two things: pace of play and just keeping grassroots interest in the game. But pace of, keeping it exciting, moving along. So I think you hit on something really, really telling there. It's almost like we're kind of making the stuff as we go along. We can try it out now under the guise of COVID. Let's see how it works. I don't know. That's not baseball to me.
No. I mean, the whole thing with the extra innings, we can all agree. Nobody likes that. No. I don't want to stay up till 2 in the morning watching an extra innings baseball game. You don't want to either. But by the same token, Bob made a great point with that. He said, it's artificial to put a guy there. Like, how did he get there?
Yeah, you got to earn that.
Yeah, this guy just disappeared. And they were talking about it on another show today, the fact that, did you realize that you as an offensive player, if you drive in that run, you're going to get an RBI. But that pitcher who gave up that run, he's not going to get – that doesn't count on his ERA.
Talk about manipulating the rules now. Gosh. You're going to put an asterisk on these 2 years for all these things that have come up?
Yeah, why don't we just play T-ball and give you as many strikes as we can get until you hit the ball?
Listen, 1982, I went 4 for 5 at the Grenville Baker Boys and Girls Club. I remember it well.
There you go. There you go. So, anything more, Mike, that the Mets can do, or is their roster set? And listen, let me go back to the Bauer thing for a second, because I got to give Mike some credit.
Thank you.
I had to basically pin him down to get this out of him, but he finally said, I don't want Bauer here. And he didn't want Bauer here. Bauer ends up signing with the Dodgers. Everybody's heard about it by now. But now Bauer comes out with this fake nonsense about, he's going to apologize to Met fans. He's going to donate money. I'm sorry I led you along. It's so dopey.
I kind of Babe Ruth that when I called the shot, because what is Trevor Bauer about? It's obvious. He's about himself. And listen, God bless him. I mean, he signed for $102 million guaranteed. He's got a 3-year deal. I'm just looking at it right now. I'm not pulling these numbers out of my head, I promise you. First year, $40 million. Then he goes 22, $45 million. That's a player option. I think I'd opt for that. And then 23, his option is $17 million, but he's already got, $85 million in the bank. So maybe he's already thinking 2 years down the road, maybe I can go to the Mets. I got to make sure.
Yeah, now you want to come back to the Mets after you spurn them for the World Series champs?
So I got to make sure that the fans are okay with me. Meanwhile, I was putting hats up on my social things, my Twitter and everything else, and I better make sure that my brand is solid. Man alive, you know what? That's why I love Jake DeGrom. Give me Jake. I mean, I know he's a professional athlete. I'm sure he's got a little bit of a little high opinion of himself, as well as everybody has to at that level. But man, Trevor Bauer for $105 million or $102 million to play those games. Thank you. Go out to LA and enjoy yourself out there.
All right, so just 2 minutes left, Mike. Mets, is their roster set? Anything left for them to do?
Pretty much set. They signed Jonathan Villar, who I thought was a great pickup. He's somebody who can play middle infield, can play outfield, speed. They have had no speed on that team for quite some time. I think the perfect pickup for him. Will they go Jake Arrieta, try to bring somebody in, another starter? I don't think so. I'm pretty happy right now. Keep that going. I think they're set. They've addressed speed. They have power. They have pitching. Their bullpen's deep. I'm ready to go. How
about the Yanks? Anything left for them to do?
As the Yankee guy, you tell me. I mean, I'm happy with what they have, but do they? We were talking about this last week. Do they bring Brett Gardner back on a flyer for the year? Would you like to see him back?
It doesn't look like it at this point. It looks like
they're
going to move on from Gardner,
catching,
at least for the time being.
Sanchez is still your catcher?
Sanchez is still my catcher. Listen, I mean, they're not going to listen to me. They're not going to move on from Sanchez right now. And,
is there
honestly,
any market for him, too?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, Higashioka, you asked me, do I want him to be my everyday catcher? The short answer is no, I don't want him to be my everyday catcher. Last year, he had a great season. I mean, he was really good defensively. He had a few big offensive games, including multi-homer games. I mean, This is your backup catcher. So, no, I don't want Higashioka to be my everyday.
And it's not like you're going to platoon those two guys like Sanchez is going to be happy platooning.
No. So, again, that's a situation that has to be addressed. Last I heard, they're still looking at a couple relievers to sort of fill those middle innings. Who that ends up being, I have no idea. Tyone, I guess they're calling him now. Yeah, I mean, he's in the rotation. We'll see what that rotation looks like when we get back from spring training. And listen, I mean, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting baseball season for both Mets and Yanks.
If we get some good weather, some good news in the country about COVID, you're going to see this baseball season perhaps be the most popular one we've had.
All right, so that's going to do it for us on Spot on Sports for this episode. I want to thank a few people who helped us along the way. Archie Snowden is our producer. Actually, tonight, Bernardino Rosario is filling in for him. I want to thank the great people here at Broadcast Center in New York. Always a first-class operation. Great people, great equipment. I want to thank Valerie Hanatic, the Jets fanatic, who designed our logo. And also my buddy Scott Daly, who came up with our terrific theme music. I mean, you and I love that song, Mike.
Gets me jazzed up every time.
Yeah, it gets in your head. I mean,
it's not like the weekend at the Super Bowl, but it's it's close enough.
For everybody here at Spot on Sports and Mike Cadone, this is Mike Trezor saying so long. We'll see you next time on Spot on Sports.
trying to time the music so it didn't run out.
Yeah. I forgot to do the thing with.
Yeah.